Aloha, it's Leimomi, and thank you to everyone who watched my last video all about my haunted house that I lived in as a teenager. I wanted to come back with some more details about some of the experiences that were had in this house. Not all by me. Some of the really good ones were actually by my mom and other family members, that were in the house, because it just, there's some crazy that went on. Some of the experiences that I found actually really interesting had to do with the basement of the house. You hear all this on movies and stuff about haunted basements and stuff. And, the basement of this house, the funny thing, I never got to go down into the basement. My dad would not allow me to. He thought it was dangerous down there. And for good reason. I guess part of the floor was dirt. And there were a lot of small rooms, most of them not lit. There was one area that was lit, and you had to do a pull chain. So you had to go down in there with a flashlight and do a pull chain in order to turn on a light down in the basement. So he didn't go down there very often. My sister actually did, even though she wasn't supposed to. She went down there. That's the person who told me about the many compartments down in the basement. One interesting thing about this is because my dad didn't go down there very well or very often, he actually didn't turn on the light down there, never left the light on, always locked it up pretty tight because he was concerned about it being an out of the house kind of entryway. But I remember there was a time where I was looking for my cat, who he got outside. He was an indoor cat, and I was hunting everywhere for him. I was so worried, and I was walking around the perimeter of the house on the outside, and it was very cold. It was a winter day. It was November, and the light in the basement was on. I remember it very clearly, and my dad wasn't even home at the time. And so it was a really weird experience that he had. Also, some of the crazy experiences that have happened, like I said, happened with my mom. It felt a little to her like something was picking on her in this house. One of the experiences had to do with the wine glasses that my mom had. She'd been collecting them for a while, some from her wedding and that type of thing. And she had this display rack that hung from the ceiling that she had hung up just for displaying these beautiful glasses that she had that were kind of one of a kind. And she'd hung up the rack. She left the rack hanging up because she was worried. She just wanted to make sure it was up there securely. She left it up for a whole day. And the next day she decided, okay, I'm going to put these wine glasses. It's not like bottles of wine, okay? We're talking wine glasses on this rack. And they stayed up there. They were just fine. And the minute that she came home and she went into the house, she was standing in the kitchen, and the whole thing came down, broke every single one. She cried. It was so sad, but it was really strange, the timing of it. So that was another crazy experience. My mom's experience, like I said, that's not even the tip of the iceberg with hers, but another experience she had was one of the most visual things that was in the house that was other than an apparition. She actually saw balls of light in the house one time. She had been watching TV and washing dishes and stuff like that. And at the time we were Catholic, and we had a religious statue in the house. It was staying with us. It was a statue of Mary. And it was in the living room or in the parlor. And she had this religious TV station on at the same time. She heard a weird noise, went out into the living room, and she saw all these lights everywhere, almost as if there was a flashlight that was on in the house, and they were all over the place. There were several of these lights, but there was none. And like I explained before, there was no windows in the living room, and so it would have been pretty dark. So it was really freaky for her. She was so scared. My mother actually also had a really unusual experience when we were leaving this house. It was the winter time when we actually ended up moving out of this house. One of the reasons that we left was because it was almost impossible to keep this house warm. It was so expensive. My parents ran the heat constantly in this house, and in the wintertime it just never was warm. My dad got into a bit of an argument with the lady who owned the house about she was like, well, pay me the rent rent. And my dad's like, oh, wait a minute, we spent $400 just trying to heat this house of yours. That's not acceptable. You need to take this off the rent. They got into a bit of an argument, and it was just the last straw for my dad. He was like, no, I'm not going to spend that kind of money to live in this house when we were still freezing cold in this house in the wintertime. So when we were moving out of the house, my mom and I spent a lot more time getting all of the stuff out of the house and making sure, you know how when you're leaving a house that you rent, you go through and you make sure you clean everything up and pick up all the papers and throw away the trash and vacuum, all that stuff, you know. And my mom was upstairs in my room and I was downstairs, and she was finishing up, and she actually heard some voice say to her, bye, and calling her by her first name. My mom's first name is Bonnie, so it said, bye, Bonnie. And she heard it clear as day. And so she hated being upstairs. Like I said, it was not the easiest thing to go up and down those really, really narrow stairs. And she comes down the stairs and she says, hey, did you hear somebody? Was somebody here? And I'm like, no, nobody's here. And she doesn't, I'm not going to call my mom by her first name. That's just disrespectful. So for me to call her by her first name and say bye to her wouldn't have made any sense. And I actually was really freaked out when she told me this story. And she didn't really actually tell me that she heard a voice until we were outside of the house, because she knew that I had a lot of experiences and she'd had a lot of experiences. So she knew I was freaked out. She wasn't going to freak me out anymore. Thank you, Mom. I appreciate you for that, and trying to keep a girl from, you know, losing her stuff. You know what I mean? But I really appreciate my mom sharing as many experiences as she had in the house with me, and making sure that I had lots of different things for this video and for the other videos in this series. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'm going to leave it right here, but come back again and we will be covering more of these stories. Thank you. Aloha. Bye.